Hey, it's Jose Galison of No Way Jose. You can find me on the No Way Jose YouTube channel. You can also just find me on just about everywhere podcasts are at, just about every podcatcher. I just recently got an Odyssey, so go check me out there. I finally hit that 300 sub spot, so thank you guys for all that. So that way my lazy ass doesn't have to manually update Odyssey because there's no way I was going to do that. Today, my guest is James Jenneman. I'm super happy to have him back. We always have great conversations. It's like we've talked so damn much. It's hard to remember to have different topics. So we decided we were going to do Best Liberty podcast because there was a podcast with Pete Quinones and Scott Horton recently, and we figured we'd do our own version of that and the reason why is because they mentioned us among all these other great fucking behemoths that were in there. Like me and James somehow squeak in there. Fucking, I don't know whether we just got lucky or what, but me and him both got in there, and it's just kind of happenstance that me and him kind of like we kind of went on this podcasting journey together, started around the same time and stuff. So it's kind of serendipitous that we both got noticed by senpais at the same time. It was definitely nice getting noticed because I know a lot of you guys have been following me. You know that Pete and Dave Smith are probably the two biggest people that have had an impact on my thinking, and then honestly, probably Scott Horton is definitely in the top 5 as well. So yeah, it was definitely a big deal to be mentioned by them. I mean, I've told everybody that congratulating them. Like I kind of got lucky. I just had a recent Twitter exchange with Scott Horton when that happened, but it was definitely very, very fucking surreal to be mentioned with all the like huge names that were being mentioned, and then somehow I squeak in there. As always, give me money. Patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. All right, that's my little grift, and let's get into it with fucking James. What the fuck's up, dude?
Hey, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. I'm fucking glad to be with you again. I feel like it's been too damn long. Like I said, we run out of topics because we talk too damn much. So, yeah. But I am ready to get into this. Are you?
Let's do it. I got a big bullet point list because I was bored today. So
we're not going to entirely do what because Pete and Scott, they did kind of go over ones that they like or they listen to. But they were also kind of doing like hey, we're kind of like using this to spotlight people.
Yeah.
Me and James talking about, we just want to kind of actually talk about ones we listen to. So these are gonna be ones that we actually semi-regularly listen to, and because I think it's kind of cool so you guys get an idea of where we come from. Because I mean, while I read books, I'm sure I know you do as well, James. There's books behind you, but I'm gonna be completely honest. Probably well over 80% of my fucking knowledge comes from podcasts. That's like a lot of it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do think reading is indispensable, but so much of my shit I've gone from podcasts.
A bunch of these books behind me are for sale on Amazon. I haven't even what they are.
They're just like those books you buy when you get like a bookcase and you want it to be filled and look nice.
Exactly. No, yeah, I mostly read ebooks. In fact, I have a huge library of illegally gotten books, or maybe legitimately, I don't know, in my Google Drive that just like whatever I want to read when I've got it.
Laws are made up nonsense anyways, so
for real, especially that intellectual property shit.
Exactly. So yeah, I thought it'd be cool to be able to see where we're coming from, like where we get our ideas from. We're just gonna go back and forth. I figured I'd kind of start with the first couple that are most important. Oh, real quick, I did want to kind of ask if the way you go about listening to podcasts has changed in the past year or two, because for me, there's been such a boom of Liberty podcasts and just so much content that now I've gone to the point where like back like a year or two ago, I listened to I had like my shows that were like I listened to religiously, and that was like basically it. And then like every once in a while, if there was one that sounded really special that I saw, I might enter into my like rotation of what I listened to, but it'd just be the episode. But like, I don't know, with all the content that's come out as of late, like now, like there's really only like 2 shows I listen to religiously. And now like pretty much every other show is just like depends on the topic. So, cause it's gone to that point. I don't know if it's changed for you. Cause it's just like, there's been a boom of Liberty podcasts lately and a lot of good ones too.
Yeah. So I've still got my like handful that I listen to like the second they drop. Mm-hmm. There's a few that I like support on Patreon even. But yeah, I think for the most part, and part of it too is that I lost my commute. Like I went to a remote position even before the pandemic, so I kind of didn't like have that driving around in the car thing. So I've had to find new excuses to listen to podcasts too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so yeah, basically the same as you. I've got the handful that I listen to no matter what, and then I see who the guest is or whatever the topic is.
All right, cool. All right, let's get started. I figured let's start out with our like religious ones. I'll go first. And this isn't honestly, this used to be my number one. Probably isn't my number one as much lately. I don't know why, but it's dropped off a little bit for me, but it's still on my religious list. And this would be part of the problem with Dave Smith. He's who made me an anarchist. I don't know if you agree, but I mean, it's for me, something about the last year or two just kind of lost its edge a little bit. Like, and don't get me wrong, still great. Still
no,
top,
dude,
top tier.
you've gained your edge. That's the problem.
Maybe that's it. Maybe
Dave
I've got
still the
Dave.
motherfucker right now. You've gone off the rails, you Nazi.
Yeah. I'm having fun. I'm digging it. I love Dave. I mean, this isn't saying anything. I'm still literally, he's my like one of two that I listen to religiously. So it's not at all shit talk. It's just that my other great love, no homo. I mean, I don't care, whatever. I love him, like whatever. But there's probably like two guys, and I mentioned earlier, and the other one's the one that like it probably is taking the lead a little bit. I don't know if maybe I've just been more interested in the route he's gone. Because Dave Smith's gone more current events. I mean, actually, it might signify a shift in my thoughts as well. He's always been kind of more current events. But I think as of late in the past year, I've started to care less about current events and more about like what maybe the ideas behind current events or the ideas behind stuff. Like I don't know. I mean, not that I'm necessarily immersed in theory, but I'm more interested in like ideas. I don't know.
I kind of waver between the two, just like from month to month or year to year or whatever. I'll get real into theory and then a lot more into current events. And you know, there's it kind of depends on, I guess, the story of the day or something like that. I don't really know what sports that.
But yeah, no, Dave Smith's great shit. So if anyone listening there, I don't really need to. You probably have heard of him, but he's what made me an anarchist. He's great, especially if you're looking for a current event show. There's nowhere better. Yeah, I don't know if you have any other thoughts on Dave Smith, part of the problem. I don't really feel like we need to go on that too much.
Yeah, no. But I will tell you that there is a better current events show than Part of the Problem.
You fucking... I'm just kidding.
No, it's Monica Perez, the Drive Time News Blast propaganda report. She and her co-host, Brad Binkley, like each pick, maybe I think like 5 headlines each for each episode. It's like a half an hour. Unless you're on their Patreon, then it's 45 minutes. I'm, of course, on their Patreon. And they do like a super deep dive into the news. They don't do like what, you know, Dave will play a clip from Brian Stelter or whatever. They don't really do that. They just like report on the reporting. They're kind of more conspiracy-ish. Definitely dive deep into the propaganda analysis. Yeah, they're my favorite. Like, never miss, every single day. Even join their live streams on Friday nights, unless I'm, you know, on your podcast.
You know what? I just realized I think I misspoke a little bit because I build Dave Smith as a current event show, but he does do current events. But really, what he does is he does current events, but then we'll use them to springboard into slightly bigger ideas. I guess maybe I've just been so immersed more in theory lately that I'm more just like, get me straight to the idea. I don't really give a shit too much unless it's some huge happenstance. But yeah, there are definitely bigger ones. And now that I say that, like more are coming to mind, and I'll probably mention them later. But yeah, Monica Perez, I'm assuming that's probably one of your tops as well.
Yeah.
So we kind of just knocked that one out. I haven't listened to her much. She is a treat. I do love her whenever she's a guest on Anywhere. I mean, this is going to sound really sexist, but she's probably one of the only chicks I really give a shit about in the Liberty movement. I don't know. Maybe it's a biological thing. I feel like women just don't have the incentive to have to be funny or interesting as much. So, I mean, call it sexist if you will. I mean, men, we have to work to cement our place. We don't just get by on our looks. So, like,
except for you.
Except for me. Yeah. I mean, that's why I've gone. Yeah. No. I don't know. Someone's probably gonna get mad about that. I feel like it's generally true. If anything, I feel like I'm way more impressed when a woman is interesting or funny. Call me sexist if you will.
One thing I have noticed about women libertarians and I mean to an extent women conservatives too, is that you don't see a lot of conventional, just like blue-pilled libertarian women. Other than like Jen Monroe is a little bit, but like Catherine Mangue Ward, for instance, even from Reason, she's about as blue-pilled as they come, but she's still an ANCAP and like refuses to vote. Monica Perez is like the conspiracy theorist. Whitney Webb, a huge conspiracy theorist. And then on the other end, you've got like basically every agorist woman who is like out in her garden all day long, except for when she's like consulting her crystals or whatever it is you do with crystals. They're like all hippie chicks. There's not a whole lot of just like normal ladies of liberty.
Yeah.
Or they're honing themselves out on OnlyFans. Like no beef on my sex worker friends, but
you bring up a good point, because there is something to women. I don't feel like dawdle around in that like annoying milquetoast centrist area. They're either all in or not, and that kind of plays to what I was getting at earlier, where it's like I feel like they don't have as much of an incentive to be in just in a biological sense to be funny or interesting, but on the other hand, they also don't have incentives to not go hard. Because men are dumb fucking simps for the most part, and if a chick goes hard, they're like, "Hey, I'm here for it, slay queen." like no one's gonna shit on them and be like, "That just seems a little too radical." So it's actually kind of good that they are able to go a little bit harder. So
they're either super hardcore or super just off their rocker baddie kind of just crazy.
Yeah, which I'm here for. And I also, while I was kind of seeming like I was shitting on the simping, I'm actually all for it. If you're a chick and you're hot and you want to utilize your hotness to further liberty, like whatever, go for it. Like, if somehow people will realize taxation is theft by whipping your tits out, like, go for it. Like, you go, girl. I'm all for it.
No comment from me on that one. I'm neutral on the chicks. So.
Well, I guess more mean, like, even like obviously like there's partially a joke there and being glib. And I'm a dude and I like boobs. But on the other hand, there is something too, like you're utilizing the stupid monkey brain of man to be like, hey, boobies, now liberty.
What's your next never miss? So we don't go 4 hours like we did last time.
Oh yeah, right. Me and you can go on tangents like nobody's business. Pete Quinones, he's like definitely my number one religious now. I love Pete. Pete, I mean, I obviously have minor differences in like, tactics and stuff, but dude, Pete is always based as fuck. And he's not, and you know what? I got to give him respect too. He is definitely someone who's a legitimate, like, intellectual in the sense that he's willing to question his thoughts. Like, he was an agorist back in the day. That's why, I'm not necessarily why, but he's what brought me to agorism, like him. And then he went full on LPMC. And as of late, he made a post about how Tho is right, which I don't know if you saw that about Tho Bishop. And like, he was, I think, being legit. I think he's starting to like realize. So it's like, props. Like, whether you agree with him or not, he's not like, you would assume that, like, say with him being homies with Dave Smith and being so involved in the LPMC and all that shit, that he would have been like, kept that to himself. But no, he's a legit skeptic. He's not scared to run away from like thoughts he's had, or I don't know. He embraces change, and I know I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
He's another one I support financially, and that's mainly because the perk of getting his interviews like the second he finishes them, so I don't have to wait. But I don't have anything to add to that. I think everything you just said, I agree with.
Yeah. No, I love Pete. He is, I don't know. I have gotten a lot out of him. Like, Dave is what got me from Minarchist to Anarchist, but then like Pete has brought me on so many different little intellectual tangents, and I fucking love it. Like, he's what got me to read Stirner. He's what got me to read Konkin. Like, I don't know. He just introduced me to all different modes of thought and like tactics and strategy, and like, I don't know. I can't fucking kiss Pete's ass enough. I love Pete. Like,
you almost said his dick.
Yeah, I almost said suck his dick, but. I mean, I don't know. I didn't want to go over the over the limit, but no.
By the way, I still haven't read Stirner. You assigned it to me last time I was on your show.
Oh, dude.
I still haven't read him. I did read Spooner finally, but yeah.
Have you gotten the Anarchist Handbook yet?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's the second chapter is Stirner. So
okay, great.
I mean, it's not obviously not the whole book, but it's a passage from it. So I think you'll get a taste and you'll see where I'm coming from. It's definitely very interesting. Knowing the way you think, I really do think you are really going to get off on fucking Stirner. So
yeah, for sure. Everything I know about him, I agree with. So that's that.
Yeah.
I was reading a nonfiction book by an agorist who we're not going to name because I name drop him on every single podcast I'm on, including my own. His initials are VA, and he talks a lot about magic. But I was reading his book, and then I switched to a novel, so the Anarchist Handbook is next.
Yeah. I'm actually like, I was reading Ethics of Liberty, and then Anarchist Handbook came out, and I just couldn't help myself, so I'm reading both now.
I'm resisting the urge. I can't do that anymore.
I know, because I'm just going to end up reading one and not the other, and then forget about the other one. All right, so I brought up Pete. What's your next one?
Tom Woods, obviously.
Okay.
So literally Tom Woods was the first libertarian I ever read, and that was because I was a traditionalist Catholic. And a Catholic blogger who I read back then did a review of Tom Woods's book on the Catholic Church. And that's how I discovered him. And sort of around the same time, I was also discovering Ron Paul, but Tom Woods was very first. And I really like the variety of guests who he has. He'll have a college professor one day talking about the Austrian business cycle theory or whatever. And then the next day, like an activist who's out marching around protesting lockdowns and stuff. So I think if there's anybody who I would like to model myself out of after as a podcaster, it'd probably be him.
I can see that. That's interesting. You modeling after him, but in your own distinct individual way. Yeah. Like in a more utilizing more magic to bring up someone before.
Which we'll get into.
I've actually kind of dropped off Tom a little bit, and that's because I guess I've gone more into the magic and less the charts and graphs as of late. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with charts and graphs. I think they have their place. I think he's very much preaching to the choir and building up, the fucking building up what's the term? Whatever, the choir, building up the choir, whatever. There's another term I was thinking where I couldn't think of it, but he's building up the troops. So he's great for building them up, but not. I don't feel like he's as great for expanding in like an outward sense, more like insulating, which is fine. I think both are useful. And I guess like Tom is definitely indispensable to especially a fledgling libertarian. And really, even if you want to stay up to date, but he is very much like, I don't know. I don't know if you get what I'm getting at. He's like, I don't want to at all come off like I'm shitting on Tom at all. It's very important to preach to the choir. The choir needs preaching to, but like
he says that all the time.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, and that's something he says. That is true. It's absolutely true. Like, so people will be like, a lot of people will shit on and be like, oh, charts and graphs aren't changing anybody's minds. But it's like, no, but they're taking the people who already agree and giving them more shit to work with, reinvigorating them. Because I will say it was so important, Tom, during the height of the COVID. Super important. I don't think it really made much of a difference to people outside the liberty movement, but I know for like someone like me, it really made me be like, I'm not crazy. And that was very important. Like,
and for me, like I bought into the mask narrative. I never like supported lockdowns or mandates or anything like that. But, I mean, I definitely like when they first started talking about social distancing, I was like, yeah, maybe that's a good idea. Masks. I think I was even arguing in favor of masks in Tom's Facebook group. So, I mean, maybe I'm a little bit less or a little more credulous, I guess, than a lot of people are. But,
no, I mean, if it wasn't for Tom, I could easily have seen myself doing the same thing. And I had a period of time where I was like, well, maybe, but like, luckily I listened to Tom and then like Ron Paul a lot around that time. Like right around that time, for some reason, the height of COVID, Ron Paul, Liberty Report, and Tom were very much something I listened to regularly, and they were very indispensable in pushing aside a lot of this fucking COVID bullshit. Yeah. So
see the Ron Paul Liberty Report, that I feel about that the same way you do about Tom. I haven't really listened to the Liberty Report in a while, maybe even over a year.
Yeah, I haven't listened to
like it's kind of elementary. It's mother's milk. Yeah. Which I love Ron Paul, but there's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, we only have so many hours. He has its place. I mean, this isn't me or you shitting on him at all. Like, I mean, if I was to have a friend who was very interested in current events and I wanted to bring him a little bit closer to my thinking, Ron Paul would totally be someone I'd probably send him along to. Like he is great, especially because it's like, what is that? It's like 30 minutes long. If you have someone who's not even like big in a podcast, they just want to get their daily news on their way home.
Yeah.
Great. So like, yeah. Who just went last? I'm all mixed up. You did. Okay. Who do I got next? All right. Now we're going to get into the point of just randoms. Like this isn't like this is no specific order. So that anyone listening, don't think like we're like literally it's like I have my two, which are Dave Smith and Pete Quinones. And then after that, everyone else is literally just like, I will see if it pops up on my notifications and whatever just seems like the best topic. Like I may throw them out. I may grab them. Like no one out of this other group has really earned my loyalty to the part where I will listen to every fucking thing of theirs. It literally depends on the topic, the guest, whatever. I guess the first one I'll bring up is, I guess I'll go ahead and bring up you. I mean, you're because I'm literally looking at my subs right now, so I'm just going to go through my list of subs, and your first one that pops up, James Jenneman, Blackbird. Great show. It definitely does depend on the guest, but you do have is cool. It's like you are a mix of two people we brought up earlier. You're like a mix of VA and fucking Tom. Like it's kind of like exactly what you're going for, and I'm definitely here for it. You definitely have interesting guests. You kind of come from a unique perspective. You're very much more postmodern, more outside the box thinking, and then just different guests. So I don't know. Do you want to fucking bloviate yourself for a while or?
No, that's kind of what I'm going for though. I mean, yeah. I'm trying not to brand myself as a libertarian podcast. Yeah. I do better and worse at that from episode to episode. Like I just interviewed Buck Johnson, who I love, but like, I don't know if he really fits my brand. I'm like desperately avoiding, there's a mayor candidate here in Minneapolis who I know, and he's great. And like, if I had a libertarian political podcast, I'd love to interview him, but like, he's so off brand for Blackbird that like, I just can't imagine having him on. So it's a little bit limiting, being that I swim like almost exclusively in libertarian circles, but I think I'm getting better. My next, so I have a few more never misses, and there's not much to say about them. Let me just kind of go through them. So there's You're Welcome, Michael Malice's show.
Oh yeah, bring that up. Yeah.
I don't think I ever miss one of those. If I do, it's because I'm not interested in the guest.
Same here. Yeah.
Then there's Baseline with Xavier Hawk from Unloose the Goose. It's like a 4-minute show. It's every single morning, and he goes through the crypto prices of the day, a couple of headlines, and that's about it. Like it's just wham bam, thank you, ma'am. So that's kind of how I wake up. And then Lou Rockwell has a podcast. He hardly ever publishes anymore. But when he does, I don't miss it. Sal Mayweather, when he publishes, I don't miss it.
He's good.
And then here's the next big one. His name's Legal Man. His podcast is called The Quash. And holy shit. Like talk about like just Spoonerite rants. I mean, just he's a trial lawyer. So like, he knows how to talk. And Jesus Christ, like he gets like angry and just rants for half an hour, and then he's like, all right, I'm tired, and then just hangs up. Like that's it.
Yeah, I've seen him on other shows, and he's always great. I just haven't gone around to watching his own show. You say, does he do guests, or is he like just his own thing? He just comments on the daily thing, or what?
No, it's just him. Every so often he'll have a guest, but it's like just his buddy. Like he just records their phone call. He never has like high profile guests or anything like that. And yeah, that's it. He's a boomer lawyer who somehow escaped boomerism.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Cool. You have any other must listen tos, or is that it?
Yes, I do.
Ooh.
So this is the person who you introduced me to, and has kind of replaced you as like my regular go-to. Oh my God, if I need a guest, it's LB Muniz of Been Awake. We have such good chemistry. Not to mention that his podcast is just fantastic, but like we have the same interests. I don't agree with him on everything, and I know I put a moratorium on saying that, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that like we don't see eye to eye all the time. But
so you agree with all those other people on everything, right?
Yes, especially you. You, who I just called a Nazi.
Hey, they were onto something. Just kidding.
God. Jesus.
Yeah, no, LB's great. Yeah, I don't remember if I introduced you to him or him to you or which one or both, but I do remember when I don't remember when it was. I think it was when I LB. I was like, dude, this is James and him are gonna fucking hit it off.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm definitely glad I hooked you guys up. So, because yeah, he's good shit for sure. I still need to get him to come on my show. I just haven't thought. The problem is I like to do like topics, and he is just so like fluid and doesn't really have a thing. So I'm like, what the fuck do I talk to you about?
that's the problem. Like, I'll go on a podcast and like we're doing this topic, our list of podcasts. But if we didn't have, well, no, this is me selling myself short, and you always tell me not to do this. I feel like I don't have much to talk about, but then I always end up going
3 or 4 hours. So
exactly. Yeah. No,
never mind.
you
Never
definitely,
mind.
you definitely have
with my
way more
negative
talk than you
self-talk.
think. Yeah. All right. I guess we'll move into. I mean, we talked to them. We'll start going to the other ones. Naturalist Capitalist Reed actually was just on his show.
Mhm.
He's another one I've been listening to more lately. He definitely is depends on the guest. He's a good interviewer. Solid stuff. It's also just more interesting to see his evolution because I do think he's a new anarchist. He kind of like got notoriety quick with his LibUnity thing, and so it's just interesting to see how he's handling that. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely interested to see where he goes. He's very earnest individual. I've gotten to know him on a personal level. I'm very interested to see where he goes and how he uses this notoriety of his he's gotten. So
yeah, I've only listened to Reed once, and it was when Tom Woods like republished his interview on that show. In fact, I was trying to find him today, and he's not even in Apple Podcasts as far as I can tell. So I'm gonna have to hit him up to help him add himself or whatever. How did he end up just blowing up? Like,
you got the I mean, this isn't to me say sell him short or anything. From my understanding, he'd been doing podcasting for a good while, probably about like 9 months, a little bit more. And then just I don't know how, but like Dave Smith came upon him, came on him or whatever, not came on him, but came upon him, and then somehow they, yeah, that's how you send. You get Dave Smith to come on you, but fucking, I don't know exactly how it went about. But yeah, then he kind of got the eye of Dave Smith. It elevated him. And I'm just not at all to say that like he only got from Dave Smith because it's like one of those things. It's like if you get noticed by a big dog, there's probably a reason, and he's still been able to maintain his relevancy. Yeah, he just that's a lot of it. It's just interesting. I like him because he just genuinely seems like an earnest person. Really wants to see liberty get furthered. I think he genuinely isn't entirely. He comes from this humble place of I'm not 100% sure how. I just want to work together. And I don't know, I just very much see myself a lot in him, and like especially like earlier on because he's like newer to anarchist. I think he's become an anarchist from the past like 6 months to a year, and that's not at all to say he's like stupid or anything. It's just interesting to see him on his journey. Like he's definitely on his journey, learning new shit. He knows his stuff. It's not to say he doesn't know his stuff. It's just I still think it's interesting. He's still figuring out a little bit. So yeah.
What are your thoughts on Liberty Unity?
I think LibUnity is. It's almost a non-point because it's like he's been very clear on it. Okay, unity, I feel like has connotations of compromise.
Yeah,
Dude, yeah.
I'm writing an article on it, and you that was my first section was unity requires compromise, and like.
Well, not necessarily. It depends on how you define it, because words are squirrely. Words depend. Words are defined by the users, so it's like. Yes, if you define it a certain way, and then no, if you define it another way. Like, and so if you settle on the same term as someone, but because the term, when I hear Reed use it, and then other people who have like similar things to Reed, his thing is like I always bring the Frederick Douglass quote of like I would unite with anyone to do right and with nobody to do wrong, and that's how he defines it. So there's no compromise there. It's just a matter of like, hey, if me and you are on the same page, cool. If not, fuck off. And like. So it's kind of almost like a non-thing. I don't know. I guess it's. I don't know. We talked about this today a little bit.
That sounds more like temporary alliances rather than unity. So, well, anyway, I'm gonna write up on it. I'm gonna write on it, and actually, Drew Hancock, who I don't have on my list, but he's good. His is he just has a YouTube channel. I don't think he publishes it as a podcast, but he just did something yesterday on it as well on Unity.
Yeah. No, it just really is how you define, and it's one of those things I feel like a lot of people who shit on it or comment on it don't really even take the time to figure out how the people who are using it are defining it. Because the way that Reed is using it is to be like, hey, if we're on the same page, cool. And for the things we're not on the same page, no. Which, I mean, that's kind of how I am with anybody. Like, I brought up in the episode I did with him today, there was some guy that I was arguing with vehemently on Twitter about some shit. I think it's some like atheism thing, and he got like kind of shitty with me. And like we got really into it. But then we have also since then multiple times on things we agree with been like on the same page, like in like some Twitter thread or some shit. And so it's like, sure, I bet like it's my thing is like when me and you agree, I will be like 100% have your back and be a fucking goddamn warrior for you. But if I disagree, fuck off. Like, I mean, I will throw you to the wolves. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, our areas of agreement in no way buys you any favor from me in our areas of disagreement. I mean, obviously I may not be an asshole about it depending on what it is. If it's something about like, if it's something that I find to be important, especially like aggressing against people, then yes. But if it's something like, I don't know, ice cream flavors or some shit, like obviously like that's stupid. But I don't know, it's just a definitions thing. It's squirrely. I feel like it's a language problem with the LibUnity thing, because it's like I get what they're going for, but it's like it has connotations that cause issues.
Yeah.
Right? So
and one issue is that like in order to have unity, we're gonna have to eject some people from the movement, and that's like the opposite of unity.
Yeah. Which we've talked about. Like that's actually one thing that I was talking about today with him, where I was saying I joke to him about me being the unity divider, but I feel like especially with the way that Reed is defining it, this is two sides of the same coin, because I'm all about dividing people, taking the liberty folks and further cementing them towards liberty, taking the authoritarians and further cementing them that way. That way we can separate the wheat from the chaff, because I feel like with today's fucking world, we're in like it's grind time. Like we don't have enough time to be fiddling around. Like pick your fucking ego that way. And then I was saying to him like the unity would be like, all right, well now you are going to unify people on this side of the divide. So like that's kind of the way I see it. So
I think that's right.
I don't know, but it really is just such a squirrely. I feel like it's very sloppy wording, but at the same time I can see why it's catchy, because it's, like that's the problem with like slogans. Sometimes like the slogans that are catchy aren't as accurate as they need to be, and vice versa. So like, I don't know, like if I just say I use the Frederick Douglass quote, like that is not catchy at all. It's a good quote, but it's not a catchy slogan. So yeah.
All right. My next almost never miss is kind of shameful, and I know you're gonna laugh at me about this, but it's the Reason Roundtable. It's it's the editors of Reason magazine, 4 of them, doing like a rundown of the news of the week every Monday, and I hardly ever miss it. And the reason I like it is because it kind of keeps me centered. Like all of my podcasts are like, I mean, Tom Woods is the least radical of the podcasts I listen to, and like in today's sort of cultural milieu, like he's pretty radical. So the reason folks keep me grounded and centered a little bit, I am finding myself more and more apoplectic listening to it, especially over COVID. Like, God, they just drank the COVID Kool-Aid so much last year. And then like when the mask mandate started getting lifted last month, they were like acting like they had been completely, opposed to masks the entire time. It was so weird. It was really, really weird to me. So it also helps me kind of keep a finger to the, like what the mainstream of libertarianism is thinking and talking about without actually having to follow like Nick Sarwark or somebody.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I'm very much like, I guess in some senses, just to throw away a flippant term, but like I've gotten a little more involved in my echo chamber, but I feel like it's one of those things where it's like I only have so much time for so much stuff. Yeah. It's like I don't really want to listen to content I don't want to listen to. So
I listen to it on 2x if that's any
okay. But I see the utility in it for sure, because it is good to keep yourself centered, capitalize and underline center, because I joke around that these type of people are centrists who are like fucking like just like cool, you stand for nothing. But like it is definitely useful. Like I used to employ that tactic a lot more. I used to listen to like Bill Maher and stuff like that. But then you get to a point where like, especially once you feel like you understand them enough, you're like, okay, well I don't need to continually listen to you, because I can kind of just predict what your take is going to be anyways. Yeah.
So, I feel that way too, actually.
Which I definitely probably could use more of the Reason stuff, because I actually don't think I have my finger on the pulse as enough as what like a blue pill libertarian would think on every issue. Yeah. So where I do more for leftists and stuff.
Surprisingly, Nick Gillespie, who catches a lot of shit in our circles, he's been the most red pilled over COVID and like everything of the last year. It might just be because he's like an old school libertarian. But he's been like the voice of reason at Reason, which is interesting. It's your turn. Go.
It's me. Yeah. Liberty Lockdown. Clint Liberty Lockdown.
Yes.
He's been great. He's very much a similar phenomenon to Reed, and then he's kind of like a new up and comer in a sense, but he's good shit. It's just fun because he's a little bit more hardcore. He's a little bit more like laid back in the Dave Smith type way, and just kind of like maybe not like every man, but just more the guy that you could just like see yourself shooting the shit with and making dick jokes and stuff like that kind of guy. Like, so he's a little bit more laid back in that sense. I definitely dig him. It's definitely obviously just depends on the guest. I've also gotten to know him as a person, so it's been really great. He's a great guy. I don't know if you got any thoughts on Liberty Lockdown. I have a whole lot to throw in it.
Yeah, no, that's me too. Basically, it depends on the guest. My next one is Radical with Shane Hazel. I don't think I miss an episode of that. If I do, it's just like and this is actually more up your alley, I guess. He interviews a lot of like veterans and stuff like that, which I don't get too into. Like I haven't even, dude, I'm so sorry. I haven't even listened to your episode that you've been pimping so much lately. Like
as long as you share it, I don't care.
Yeah, I've been sharing it. I even promoted to Thad Russell to try to get.
Yeah, no, that's I mean, you're not necessarily the target audience I'm going for, but I definitely would it was very emotionally impactful, and it honestly is the most ideal anti-join the military episode I could possibly think of. Because it comes from my perspective as an 11-year veteran of the Air Force I wouldn't say it's necessarily a cushy job. I'm a mechanic, so I mean, like, it's not like I have like a desk job, but it's fairly relaxed. I'm in the Air Force, good environment. And then you contrast it against someone who's the opposite, who's Army, who's been in for like 4 years and legit saw combat and was bent to the shit. Because the Army gets treated way worse. You can see two sides of the same coin. That you get to see the shitty scene combat, like really had the dirty fucking job of like the Army/Marines because they get treated way worse. And then me, who's had the more like what you think of when you think of government, which is like bureaucratic bullshit, kind of had a cushy job, good paycheck, blah, 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 for 11 years. And you get to compare and contrast the two of us. And then on top of that, you get to deal with, like, he legit tells a story of like having, like, killing people. And it's like kind of fucked up because you can put yourself in the thought of like, I can totally see why he'd do that. Like, even though like he brings up two examples. One example is he kills 3 guys who he wasn't sure if they had weapons on them or not. But by their body language and what was going on at the time, he assumed they were combatants, but he did not know. He said, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. And he killed them. And it was one of those things where it's like, he was a gunner in a helicopter. And it was one of those things where it's like, it was like, this is one of those decisions that if I don't make the split-second decision, people could die. And like, he's totally right. And that one was like, apparently they found the bodies later and they had weapons. So he was right. His instincts were right. But then that kind of put him on a logical path to start thinking about combat in a certain way. And he legit later, the final, like the most fucked up thing was there was a guy that like he was up in the copter, and he saw this guy who ran away, dropped his gun, ran away, and he gunned him down. And like, you think about it on a surface level and you're like, that's fucking awful. And it is awful. But on a tactical level, like in a Machiavellian sense, it's like that person almost certainly is going to come back and kill someone later.
Sure.
And probably someone you know. And like, while it is like, me and you would be like, you just shouldn't have put yourself in that situation in the first place. But you know what? You're in that situation. And these are people you know, and you are responsible for other lives. And so you can totally make an easy utilitarian argument of like, like why you should fucking kill that guy. And like, and it also is a split-second decision where you don't really have time to think these things through. And like, and then on top of that, and it's not to say that he's saying that war is good or anything. He's super torn up about it now. And then to add all of that on it, he joined so he could get school. And then now he like kind of has come to the conclusion, a lot of us libertarians have, that, like the whole like fucking, 4-year degree type path isn't ideal. And now he just wants to go to trade school, and the trade school is like $500. And Jesus so Christ. He did all that for that. And it's, that's anyone listening, go check that out. For the love of God, please share everywhere. Share. It's the best fucking, like, don't join the military message in the world. And he's very much like, don't join the military. Because like,
ripped to shreds though.
Yeah, he's pretty fucked up about it. Like, big time. Like, I was worried I was going to cry in the episode. I didn't. I mean, he was audio only, and he was bringing
I'm worried that I'm going to cry right now. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's fucked up shit. But, I can't think of a better anti-war message. So, like, I don't know. And then on top of that, then he kind of was like, I'm a little bit jealous of you when he was like talking about me. But I'm like, well, me at the same time, I've been lulled into this, like, false sense of security and like had this like cushy job for 11 years. And now here I am getting out when I've kind of built my life around it. So like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not at all wishing I had what he had in any way. At the same time, in some sense, at least he kind of got hit with reality real quick and got to be like, get the fuck out. Like, you know what I mean? Whereas I got lulled into this like false sense of like, I got a good paycheck, you know, like the benefits are good, you know, like, and here I am. Like now I'm at 11 years getting out, like over halfway through a quote unquote career. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Yeah. So anyways, back to the topic.
I know.
Shane is great though. Shane is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I've done an episode with him. I've been on his show as well. I love Shane. I can't recommend him enough. He is a fucking sweetheart and he's fucking hilarious. He's a great guy.
Oh yeah, I actually met him in Pennsylvania. I was at their LP convention and he was there. That was it was a lot of fun.
I can't commend him enough. He's a fucking great guy. And actually, I think he's going to have that Schroeder guy on whenever he can. I think he's going to be later, whenever the guy comes off of, I don't know, leave or some shit. So he was the one who answered my call to fucking be like, get this guy on somewhere. And I'm super glad I couldn't, aside from maybe like the Scott Horton show, like I couldn't think of anywhere else for him to go.
If anybody's going to do it, Shane's probably the best.
Yeah, Shane's probably the best.
I mean, if he goes on Thad Russell's show, that'll make him cry.
Thad would be like, honestly,
Thad and him would just be like in puddles of tears, just like both of them just weeping.
Thad, Scott, and Shane are the ideal ones I would like him to go on, because those are the best places to distribute. I mean, I guess maybe being greedy, I would say Dave as well. Although honestly, Dave's not the best one to talk to him about it. He just has the biggest platform.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's just more of that aspect of I want to get the message out. So, but like I don't know if anything ever comes if everything crumbles in my podcast, if I could just get this guy's story out, that's all I care about. Because I think the anti-war message is the most important message in Liberty. So the most important. Number 2 being like the drug war. So
that Scott Horton should be on my never miss list, and I don't think I've listened to a Scott Horton show in months.
I've dropped off Scott Horton too, but he is great shit.
He is, and like I donate, and I would never ever want antiwar.com or Libertarian Institute to go away, but like we keep saying, there's only so many hours in the day, and God. That shit is so depressing sometimes. Like,
yeah, and he is very much in the minutia of different foreign policy. Yeah. And I've gotten past the point of arguing like foreign policy with people. Like,
sure.
I mean, I will argue foreign policy, but usually if someone tries to argue foreign policy with me and they're like, well, Israel did this, or Palestine did that, or fucking Syria did this, I'm like, whoa. Okay. And I will like legit back it up and be like, bring it to like, I guess like theory, if you will. And I'll be like, is it okay to do this if someone does this? Like I'm not interested in arguing the minutia of what country did what.
It reminds me of when I don't remember if this was the Brooklyn Center, Minneapolis one or the Chicago one. But here recently, there's a police shooting where they shot a kid who had a gun. He dropped the gun, and they still shot him. And like they found the gun behind the fence that he was coming through, but like he dropped the gun, like his hands were up, and people were, and libertarians even. Were saying they found a gun. He had a gun. He was armed. They were within their rights to shoot him. And like, no, I mean, the reason that they tell you to put your hands up and drop your weapon is so that they don't have to shoot you. So it's kind of getting back to that. Why are you looking at the particulars when we have a first principle to lean on?
Yeah, which is like you can kind of. That's why I prefer to go there, because it is great to like, because I used to be super into Scott Horton and super into current events. So then whenever any of my like status friends would like question me on shit, I could blow them away and they'd be like, "Holy shit, this dude knows his stuff." And like, don't get me wrong, that was great in a sense because I got to completely own them on that front.
Yeah.
But like, and they kind of give it to be like, "Well, look where this guy's coming from." But it takes so much effort to be so up on the current events and the foreign policy minutia, when it's just so much easier just to bring it back to first principles.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I want to get their thinking at anyways.
I used to go on drunken rants in bars too, which was never cute. So
yeah.
So all right, you're next.
I wanted to add in, I mean, I don't know if I mentioned earlier, I'm going to sprinkle in some here too, other non-libertarian shit. So this isn't necessarily a podcast per se, but like I'm a comics guy, and Comics Explained. It's a YouTube channel. He just goes into like, he did like, he would do like 40-minute explain videos on, the X-Men character Cable or shit like that. And like, or different storylines. He's a great one for comics. So if you want to get into comics and start learning about comic book characters, or say you even are just as simple as there's a comic book movie coming out and you don't know what, and you're like, who the fuck is this character? And I guarantee you could go to Comics Explained, find his channel, type in that character, and boom, you'll have a fucking probably a 20 to 45 minute video explaining the character. And I don't know, I'm a big comic book guy, so it's great, you know. I like to use those as like ways to find new stories to follow. Yeah. So I don't know if maybe you want to sprinkle in a non-libertarian one now too. I'm sure you don't have anything to say on that one.
No, I've never listened to it in my life. I haven't even listened to Mark Claire's comics podcast. So.
Oh, that one's good too. I probably should have brought that up, but I was trying to go a little bit outside the pale.
yeah, exactly. It's good. One non-libertarian podcast that I listen to, and I'm going to lump in crypto with libertarianism, even though I have two crypto podcasts that aren't specifically libertarian. Philosophize This. It's an old show. It's a huge audience show.
I used to watch that, I think.
He's gone from like Socrates all the way up now to the postmodernists. Each episode is just a deep dive into some thinker or school of thought in philosophy. I know he did Ayn Rand, and he did the Austrians versus Marx, which I thought that they probably could have each used their own episode. I think he did a few episodes on Marx, which whatever. He hasn't gotten into Hans Hoppe, although I emailed him once and he said that he would. So I thought that would be pretty cool, because I think Hoppe is even better than Rothbard as far as theory and philosophy goes.
Yeah, I highly suggest for us Liberty folks to spread out a little bit and do other philosophy other than fucking Liberty stuff specifically, because I feel like it expands your mind. It's good stuff. Like, because I kind of, in a sense, came to Liberty through like atheism philosophy, because there's a lot of philosophy there, and like, you know, how you question things and stuff like that. And I'll probably get into some channels there later. But yeah, and that kind of like gave me logical tools and stuff, and not all of them. That's kind of where I found, God, I wish I could remember his name. I totally will think of it later. The one philosopher who's like, if you could imagine the perfect world, and that's how you kind of get that's how you get a lot of commie bullshit. You know which philosopher I'm talking about?
No.
Fuck, I'm gonna think of it later. Someone will probably be like, I don't know, whatever. I'll think of it later. But like, I don't know. I went to a lot of philosophy there, and it expanded my mind. And then I found ones I don't agree with, and I don't know. I mean, and a lot of people are like worried they're gonna find it's gonna bring them down paths they don't want to go. But it's like, I don't know. What are you, scared of learning shit? I don't know what to say. All right. Next one. I want to give this guy a mention because he is great for like. He's another one. I think he's like learning stuff. He's having all different types of guests on. Why Libertarian? I don't know if have you been on his show yet?
No, I haven't. I didn't even know he had a show, honestly. I follow him on Twitter, but he hasn't entered my invitation.
Dude, I will fucking, you need to get on there. I think you'll have good stuff. Cool. I've done I think 3 episodes with him. I did one that was just an episode with me. I did an episode that was me and Sal Mayweather and the Clean Libertarian. It was supposed to be Tommy Salmons, but then Tommy Salmons had some stuff come up. And it was supposed to be like an agorism versus politics, like debate / conversation. And then where Tommy Salmons left, it was just me and Sal versus Clean.
Oh God!
But luckily, it was a polite conversation. It wasn't really a debate style, so it was just a polite conversation.
Good.
But like, obviously, like, you know, he was kind of 2v1. But
I'm glad we're moving beyond that argument. Now I guess it's like what. The agorists kind of have gone their way, and now it's like Libertarian Party versus GOP, which is even more boring as far as I'm concerned.
Although I want to revisit the agorism versus politics, not me specifically, but on a larger stage, because I feel like we've had this GOP versus like LPMC conversation, but on a larger stage, we have not had the other discussion. Like the big dogs haven't had this, in my opinion, other than maybe like
true, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we've had a lot in the small stage. I don't know what the deal is there. I've been trying to fucking drift that big time, but whatever.
Yeah, Vin Armani's taken a hiatus from doing podcast interviews apparently, so maybe when he comes back, he'll want to do it with like Dave Smith or something like that.
Well, they tried to they had that spat a while ago, and it ended up being I don't know. Then we tried. A lot of us have been trying to push Sal for that. I don't know. Maybe I can get Dave, although I feel like Dave would outclass me, even if I have the right position, just because he's Dave.
Well, and Dave would outclass Sal too. I mean,
yeah,
Sal has talking points. He doesn't have arguments. I mean, like, I love Sal, but like, you know, I mean, I think if you're going to have Dave, who is like a seasoned debater at this point, then you're going to need someone like Vin Armani to kind of go toe to toe with him.
Although I feel like Vin has a tendency to go into the abstract.
Shit, we're using his name.
Oh no, we evoked him.
God.
But we have a tendency. He has a tendency of like going to the abstract and like I don't know. I think if you have, I don't know. I don't know how like him versus Dave will work, because I feel like Dave would be the kind that would bring him back to the logical and then hammer him on it, and then Vin would be the type to just get cunty about it.
Yeah.
Because I like Vin, but I feel like if he might, if anyone's listening or like trying to like start shit, I mean, I'm totally surmising, but I could totally see him being the kind of guy that if someone in a debate then pulls you back into logic and tries to hold you to like logical fallacies and be like, no, you can't do that, then I could see him getting like shitty. Like, I don't know. I might be wrong because he gets in the abstract sometimes. I haven't seen him debate though, so maybe I'm entirely wrong. I don't know.
Maybe he doesn't debate. I mean, maybe that's just not his thing. I don't like debating.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have a conversation, honestly. Yeah, I think it's more productive. I'm not I don't know. If it's something I'm super solid on, I probably would be okay at debating. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay, is it my turn? You did.
Sure.
You did
yeah, I don't remember who went last, but
you said why libertarian. Let me look at my list. So I said earlier 2 crypto podcasts that I listen to. One of them, her name is Crypto Casey, and it's spelled the guy way, Casey. And she's fantastic. She does a weekly podcast like on her own YouTube channel that she also publishes to podcast things. And then her Instagram, she does Q&As. And basically, she just kind of does a rundown of like what's going on in the crypto markets. So if you're interested in that, she's definitely the one to go to. And then the next one is called Bankless, and they're real tied up in the Ethereum kind of universe. They're definitely not libertarian. They're like super blue pilled, which or maybe not blue pilled, but definitely progressive. And that's I like the Ethereum community, for lack of a better word, because they are kind of socially progressive, and it shows that that crypto can kind of go beyond libertarianism, which I think it needs to in order to kind of gain critical mass.
Yeah, no, that is an important thing with the going beyond, because it is one of the beauty things. Like say something, I don't know, like Lyft or fucking Uber, like that employed a lot of libertarian fucking like theory, but you didn't have to argue libertarian theory, or just like, hey, here's a superior product. Do you want it? Yeah, I want it. And then it's like you kind of by default bring people to your ideology through actually doing it. I mean, they may not recognize it. It's kind of the Konkin thing, where it's like how there are people who utilize agorism who aren't actually philosophically on the up and up. They're just doing it, and it's the same idea. So that is very important. I think that's one beautiful thing about like crypto, or even like 3D guns, even though there's a little bit more in like a niche in like liberty type stuff. So, sure, but it's getting there.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go hang out with Cody Wilson in Texas, which you've refused to go to.
I'm not going all the way to Texas, dude. Yeah. Well, what do they say? Steers and queers. No,
what's wrong with that?
Yeah. Well, I'm neither. I would go. I'm not want to travel much. That's why I might want to go to that like Mises event, but the shit's like fucking $500. Although at the same time, it's like that'd be pretty dope. It's a lot of big wigs.
Yeah,
and it'd be really fucking cool. It's like a 3-day event, I think. So, but I'm very, very tempted. But I'm like, fuck, this is expensive. My wife's gonna fucking kill me. All right, next one. This is like a manga / anime thing. Geekdom 101. So, I mean, that's just a quick one. I don't really have to go anything deep there. If you like manga, if you like anime, a lot of like Dragon Ball Z. So, like, I like to follow that stuff. I mean, I liked manga, or not manga. I've never really been one to be in manga. I've read a couple mangas. They're okay. There's some cool ones. Like Berserk is like a classic. But you'd probably like that a lot. But so far as anime, I used to watch a lot when I was a kid. I've gotten more into it as an adult now that I have kids, because it's like something me and my kids can connect on. Like,
that's great. Yeah, I'm glad that to me, like, anime is one of the most elegant and beautiful art forms, and I use that term like earnestly that I can think of. I love anime. I don't get too into it because a lot of times I can't follow the storylines and stuff like that. It's just I'm not a very good consumer of TV. But like, man, what the stuff that I do get into, like FMA and what's the one with the giants? Fucking Attack on Titan.
Oh, it's a good one. Yeah.
Man, I love them. Like,
yeah.
So yeah. Anyway,
there's so much variance because people put like anime in a box, but it's like there's everything. Like Attack on Titan, I would never watch with my kids. Then I have stuff like My Hero.
It's so mature.
Yeah, then I have stuff like My Hero Academia, which is basically like a cutesy like superhero type anime. There's all sorts of shit. Like, and I love it because it's great for connecting with my kids. I watch old Dragon Ball that I used to watch with my kid, like as a kid with my kids. Like, I don't know, it's great for connecting with kids, and especially where I have girls. I know something about anime. I don't know if it's just. I feel like it has a more of a cross gender appeal. I might be wrong. I don't know, because it's hard being like not that I'm super manly, but like. Kind of am more masculine and have masculine proclivities, but then I have daughters, and it's like it's hard to find things to connect with them on because it's like I'm not into girl shit. Like anime has been good at like kind of crossing that bridge. So
I think it's really cool that you're exposing your kids to it, though.
Yeah, like, no, that's
just really neat.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No,
it's your turn, anyways.
It is my turn. You're right. Let's see. So. This is like an obvious one because I talk about him all the time. But Thad Russell's Unregistered podcast, or is it Renegade? I can never remember.
Renegade.
I think it's Renegade University Unregistered podcast. Yes. I should know these things. I work for the guy. He's got me on staff, so
you're like a product of him.
Yeah. So Unregistered podcast. I listen to most episodes. They're kind of long, so if I'm not super interested in the guest, then. I might just either skip it or listen to like the first half and get the gist. But I love Thad's sort of worldview and way of thinking. Although, man, lately he's been really like getting deep into Steve Bannon's podcast, and so now he's like he's not like calling for war against China, but man, he sure does sound like Steve Bannon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he does definitely. I think. Thaddeus is a good spot of like filling a niche that was kind of empty within libertarianism because like we are so subject to because me and you are very friendly with postmodernism type thought and stuff like that, and I feel like I don't know. There's a certain I can't remember his name right now, but he's kind of a cunty when it comes to like postmodernism and like and then also Jordan Peterson. There's like so many people who just shit on postmodernism. You're thinking of
Stephen Hicks, probably.
No, he's a Liberty guy. He's the information gulag or whatever or Google gulag.
Oh, Michael Rectenwald.
Yes,
Rectenwald. Yeah.
I don't know. I whenever he talks about postmodernism, my eyes roll. And I don't even know that much about postmodernism, and I can tell he's being disingenuous.
Sure. So, well, that's the thing, and having not lived and studied in the like, I guess what like 40 years ago or whenever it was that the postmodernists were really kind of in their prime. I don't know who's right because what Thad presents as postmodernism and what Michael Rectenwald presents as postmodernism are completely different from one another. It's like they read the same books and got different things out of it, or maybe they just read different books. I don't really know.
I mean, to be fair, I guess I can't really comment too much till I finally get around to reading those books.
Sure.
At the same time, the vibe I get is that Thaddeus is kind of being like, well, I guess it depends on who you read. You can interpret this from that.
Yeah.
But he's like, but these postmodernist thinkers have these thoughts. But then then it seems like Rectenwald is very much just throwing away the entire like mode of thought because some of the writers have wrong think.
That's the thing. I mean, Adam Smith and Marx were both modernists. Like they're both materialist thinkers in that era. If my dog starts barking, I'm really sorry. The neighbors just went outside. So I guess it's probably a lot the same way in postmodernism. I mean, there's like a postmodern era. It's not so much like a postmodern philosophy any more than it's like a modern economic system or whatever. So
yeah,
maybe that's it. Like I've only read it. I've read a little bit of Foucault and like, I mean, I've listened to the Philosophize This episodes on it and stuff like that.
But no, he definitely like even if you think postmodernism is completely bullshit, it's still at the same time you would want someone who's friendly with those ideas to bring people towards liberty.
Yeah,
like
I think so.
Yeah. So and that's very much Thaddeus, and I feel like I've seen more. I'm very glad Thaddeus came about because I've seen more people that have kind of taken up that mantle a little bit, like me, you. I mean, I can't think of any on top of my head, but there have been very much more people friendly to the concepts of postmodernism since Thaddeus kind of stepped in the scene. Whereas it was very much just like faux pas with the Rectenwalds and the Petersons of the world saying that it was the subject of every evil or whatever the fuck. So I'm definitely glad Thaddeus came about. He definitely has had his impact on that thing. And that's another thing. Pete I don't think he's ever gone deep into postmodernism, but he's definitely similar in that he's friendly to the concepts, and he's kind of talked about it before. So, I don't know. It's nice to have thinkers within the movement who aren't scared of different thoughts. You know what I mean?
Well, and Pete has a unique experience in that he went to like a fundamentalist seminary. I mean, he came from that like hard and fast black and white way of seeing the world. And he still gets into it a little bit. Like when he had Bird on his show, he was like, "Oh, I can prove to you that Catholics aren't Christian." Like, I mean, you don't even say that kind of shit. Come on, dude. But yeah. So when Pete talks about stuff like that, I really get into it, especially when he's talking with the Timeline Earth guys. Which that could be its own podcast right there. Is him interviewing Bird and Carr and Aaron.
That was one of my favorite things of this past year was like his episodes with Bird, and then honestly really just all the Timeline Earth guys. I don't know why they just
that Deleuze episode. Holy shit, man! That blew my mind. I listened to it like 3 times.
Yeah, no, they were all fucking. They were so. I was so goddamn stoked for every one of those episodes. So anyone listening, like, if you know what I'm talking about, like, I don't know. Gee, there's your dog. Go fucking DM Pete or fucking go look for it. Whatever. Like, I will find it for you. Those episodes were fucking a delight. And like, I had already read Stirner too before they covered it. They covered Stirner as well, which I mean, that is one person I cannot plug enough. I do think he has very important concepts that need to be spread within liberty because it allows you to. I feel like it allows you to think on different layers. But anyways, I'm going to move on to the next one. I'm actually going to do 2. And these are going to be in my opinion, the best person for the number 1 most important issue and the best person for the number 2 most important issue. We kind of already talked on the one, Scott Horton. He's the best on the number 1 issue. And then the Clean Libertarian Podcast, who's a new up and comer, best on the number 2. He is a former drug addict, felon, whatever. So you can kind of speak on things from that way. And I feel like he is someone who really needs his due. I try to plug him as much as I can because I mean, I joke and tell him it's the second most important thing, but you know what? It's still the second most important. It's still fucking important. And there aren't a whole lot of people covering like really these two in a serious manner. So, and he's able to speak from it from a spot of experience. Me and him have actually done a few episodes together because I have a storied past with drugs myself. So,
yeah, I've listened to one of your episodes with him. I've never listened to his show, but I definitely like where he comes from.
Yeah.
I guess in keeping with that theme, Micah Delic, who. Did you? No. It wasn't you. It was I think Buck or Mark Clare, one of the two. I was looking for somebody to interview on psychedelics because I was just interested in it, and one of them mentioned Mike Brancatelli, who used to be like he was the Robbie Bernstein before Robbie Bernstein was on Part of the Problem. He went and he did an ayahuasca ceremony down in Peru, came back. Immediately quit his job at Gas Digital Network and like just followed his bliss, and has been hosting this podcast on psychedelics called Micadelic ever since. He's a stand-up comic like Dave and Robbie, and so anyway, I've been really getting into his show. I just interviewed him today. That'll come out in a couple of weeks. But man, what a great conversation, and like what a just awesome show.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to listening to it. Is my mic still working? I accidentally bumped the USB.
No, you went tinny.
Oh, fuck. Give me a second. This is super professional. All right.
There it is. I'm back. All right. I don't have to edit that because I'm lazy. Yeah, no, it's great shit. Next, Rationality Rules. He is, obviously not a podcast. He's more of like a short bits. He comes from the atheist perspective, but he also covers a lot of like, he's kind of like where atheism and philosophy kind of meet. He's good shit. I would definitely check him out. He actually was, I think there was 1 or 2 episodes where somehow he made it part of the problem. This was like a year or 2 ago. They made it part of the problem thing. Huh?
Where do you find him? I've never even heard of that.
He's on YouTube, Rationality Rules. He's good shit. He has a lot of good stuff. Like, I'm pretty sure like, Dave broke down like one of his episodes on like libertarianism or some shit, and I was always like really hoping they would fucking like get together. And are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, you were very still. I was like shit. But no, I was really hoping they'd get together and talk more because like Rationality Rules is one of those guys who's like very intellectually honest. I just think he hasn't really explored liberty that much. So I was like, man, if I could get if these two could like talk, that'd be fucking great. Because especially because like Dave has gotten more into like woo-woo as of late, in my opinion. I know a lot of people differ. He's gotten a little bit more conservative Christian, as he always jokes. And so I think like the meeting of those two would be great, because Rationality Rules hasn't really delved deep into like liberty. So like I know he did an episode on it and Dave picked it apart, but he was like coming from a perspective where he was just looking at like the popular. I'm pretty sure he like mostly focused on like Ayn Rand and shit. So it's like, you know, like obviously if you're like, oh, this is why Ayn Rand's wrong and this is your fucking review of libertarianism, it's like, well, yeah. And so I was like, God, I was kind of always hoping they would get into it more. But whatever, because they kind of have both. I think they both have a lot to benefit from each other. But whatever, this is long past now. But he's great shit. He's definitely intellectually honest, definitely willing to explore new ideas. But yeah, it definitely is like where philosophy and atheism kind of meets. It's where he covers a lot. He's actually kind of funny enough. I used to be way more big into atheism stuff, and he's kind of very not as accepted within the atheism movement, because atheism is very well known for being super lefty. And not to say this Rationality Rules guy is like a super right guy or anything. If anything, he's just really just intellectually honest, and that's the issue. Because we all know how this works. Like the big thing that got him disowned was he did some episode on like, I think something about like why trannies shouldn't be allowed to fucking be in female sports or some shit, like something like that. And they like basically the atheism community basically borderline disowned him. Oh, because that's how, and this is where, to be fair, that's completely where people come from, where they shit on the atheism, like, because they're like, oh, they're just fucking, you know, a different religion, like with their fucking statism and shit. And it's like, well, that's where people get that concept from, that shit, because that is legit a thing, and he just wasn't part of it, and like kind of was having an honest conversation, and they're like, no.
I think that there's a difference between like the atheism community and, which I would like lump Sam Harris in with, for instance, and like the rationalist, like ideological rationalism, like the people who are at the Rational Wiki are less wrong. To an extent, Slate Star Codex, who has a different name now, Astral Codex 10, I think. Although he's a lot more independently thinks a lot more independently. But yeah, that whole what movement, community, whatever, it smacks me as ideological, just as ideological as, you know, any fundamentalist Christian or whatever.
Yeah, which is like, it makes sense that now in retrospect, it makes sense that this is like a thing within the atheist movement, because if you think about it, what is atheism? All that atheism is, and I'm going to be straight up. A lot of people don't realize this. Atheism is not asserting there is no God. It's just saying you don't believe in God. So if you're going to have an atheism community, all it is a group of people who don't believe there's a God. And it's like I said, once again, not believing in God does not mean you assert there is no God. Generally speaking, it means you take either the I don't know or the there is no God. Most people are the I don't know. I'm in the I don't know.
So what's the difference between that and agnosticism? Is it just the title you decide to take?
Way I kind of look at it is kind of like you know how you see the fucking grid that's the authoritarian, libertarian, or left and right. Yeah. That's the kind of way I see it. You have along one axis, you have agnostic or gnostic. On the other axis, you have libertarian, or not libertarian, but you have atheist, like or atheist or theist. Because atheism, theism is an answer to the question of what do you believe, and the other one is an answer to the question of what do you know.
Oh, all right. Because
Gnosticism is an answer, is like whether you know. So generally speaking, I always clarify, I don't like Gnostics, period. Unless we're being like super specific, like you're like, this is my hand, or I'm doing the camera, this is my hand. If you're being like, and I know that, I'm like, okay. I mean, I guess we can be like shitty and get in the weeds of like, well, what do you really know?
Yeah.
But like, okay, whatever. If you're being like, I'm Gnostic about the existence of my own body, sure, whatever. But like, but if you are really, especially something like a God or the lack thereof, if you're like, I know this is the fact, then I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like in general, and I know a lot, that actually tends to be more of an issue with theists than atheists, because it's far more often that theists take the position of I know there's a God than for atheists to take the position of I know there isn't.
Yeah, because not only I know there is a God, but like I know that my construct of God is the construct. Like, anyway.
Yeah, no, that is what I hate is Gnosticism in general. If you're asserting, aside from some very insanely specific claim, if you're claiming utter knowledge, like I know this, and that's even with something as simple as like say with like strategy within like Liberty. If you're being like, I think we should utilize the LPMC, and you're coming from this, if you're coming from the position of I know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you don't. You don't know. I don't know. I'm advocating one position, but I don't know. Like, I could very well later get some argument that convinces me otherwise. I'm not so deluded or to believe that I know, like, really anything, you know? So that's kind of where I come from. So,
all right.
Yeah.
So I will see your, what is it? Rationalist. What's the name
Rationality
of it?
Rules.
Rationality Rules,
Mhm.
and give you the exact opposite. So it's called Spiritual Psychic with Sarah Weissman.
With Kirk Cameron.
Yeah. All right. So in 2016, we lost my little brother in a car accident, and my mom went a little off the rocker, and she started consulting with mediums who would talk to my brother on the other side. And one of them is this chick, Sarah Weissman. And I don't so much believe in the medium stuff, but man, her podcast is great. She talks about the kind of spiritual ages, and like we're in the age of Aquarius now, and this is why things look so weird. She offers alternative explanations for things, which I'm always open to. So that's
Cool.
that.
Is that the last? Do you have anything else? Because I've actually looking through my list and I don't have anything else. I mean, I have other ones I listen to occasionally, but not anything that would make this list, especially where it's getting longer in the tooth here.
Sure.
So do you have any other ones that you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, let me just plug a few that I listen to.
Yeah.
So there's Individualist with Nick.
Yep, that's good.
There's Deborah Gets Red Pilled, which everyone should listen to no matter what. And then You're Talking Over Me with Adam Patrick is fantastic, and Break the Cycle, obviously, with Josh Smith. You're Talking Over Me and Deborah Gets Red Pilled are, of those that I just listed, are probably my favorites though, because they're kind of unique. They have interesting angles.
Yeah, You're Talking with Me. I saw your episode with him, and I very much enjoyed it. That's the only one I've listened to him, though, so I can't really give too much of it. But definitely, you guys' conversation was really great. I enjoyed that. I'm going on with him next week, so I'm really interested to see how that goes. Obviously, whoever's listening to this now, there's a time suck of podcasts, so I don't know. It very well could be already released by the time you're listening to this, because I usually I've recorded a bunch of episodes, and I'm going to release them. Because I generally try to like schedule. My wife's working, so like my wife worked a bunch this week and isn't much next week. So basically, time is a made up concept when it comes to podcasting. So and I know you do the same thing. You record yours and hold on to them for a while, depending.
Like it depends, but like the one I released today was like months ago. It's just because if I get a big name and I interviewed Juliet from down the street, then I'll put the big name out first. She doesn't mind. But anyway, yeah, I think we probably hit on everything I really want to. Buck Johnson's show Counterflow is good.
Oh yeah, I didn't think of that. Like I saw his episode with Mark Claire was really good recently.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Actually, this is something that I do want to plug because your audience probably isn't quite as familiar with it. Integral Theory, which is like postmodernism. There's a great podcast. You're not going to agree with everything. It kind of comes from the left, but the name of the podcast is Everyone is Right. And if you're interested in like new ways of looking at the world, that's a great one to kind of binge all their past episodes and then just kind of get caught up and start listening to it. It's a good one.
That is a smart title for an integral podcast.
Yeah, I know.
Which I've done a little bit of my dive. I listened to a couple of audiobooks. I've been meaning to want to have a conversation with you sometime. Maybe this might not be the best time, but I get the vibe. It's kind of like intellectual horoscopes. I don't know. I like it, but at the same time, it's like, is it just because it's like one of those things I can read into it what I want to read into? I don't know. Like, but it also does have usefulness. It's like we're intellectualism and woo-woo kind of meet almost.
It is definitely that. If you go in their Facebook group, you'll see that there's a lot more diversity of thought than the scholarship and kind of big names would have you believe. You'll see a what happened on January 6th was the worst thing to ever happen in American history, like on one post, and then the next one is like, why are you still wearing your fucking mask, you fucking COVID idiot? You know, like it's really kind of diverse and like they get political, obviously. I just told you two of the headlines, but they think a little bit more deeply than your average Republican or Democrat, and more differently than your average libertarian. So
yeah, that's definitely
an
interesting dive at integral theory. God, there was a one that you did that was like super long. I know you've done 2 integral episodes, haven't you?
Yep.
The first one you did, who was that with? Do you remember?
His name's Brian Doherty, and he's actually a libertarian integralist. And I heard about him on Brett Veinott's show, School Sucks, which is another one, you know, is good to listen to. But again, you know, you kind of look at the topic, or at least I do.
No, my point being, I'm getting at is anyone listening that wants a good episode to watch, that one, like that is an amazing episode. Like, go smoke some weed and go listen to that one. You'll be fucking blown away. Be like, what? It's very, very good. I mean, like I said, it's kind of like woo-woo in a way, but it also kind of like, I think, shifted my thinking a little bit. The big thing, too, the biggest concept I like out of integral theory, I know it sounds simple, and that's like, I mean, I've obviously got more of it. The biggest thing was like, it kind of is a merging of the Western and the Eastern concepts of time, and like how the Western's like a line, is a linear concept, and then the Eastern is like cycles, but this one's a fucking helix. So it's like, and it was kind of funny because it was like the theories that I was kind of mixing around in my head, especially with what's going on now, kind of played into that. So like it kind of made me think like, oh, because this reminds me so much what we're going through now, or we're about to go through in the next decade or two, of the advent of the state. The initial advent of the state was and we've talked about this, was the fucking the states like implemented themselves among fertile areas when agriculture was first coming about, and then you had the barbarians who lived on the fucking outskirts in the non-fertile areas who actually thrived. And I'm like, holy fuck, this is like history rhymes. It's like this is that, and this is like the ascended version of it, like up the helix a few times, you know. So I'm like, Jesus, like we're just still the same fucking thing, you know.
It's the same thing with different technologies. I mean, instead of hose and shovels, we're using computers and bombs. So
yes, and we're gonna have these people that live on the outskirts and the rural areas who are probably gonna be killing it, while these people in their fucking smart cities who think they're killing it and are super fucking indignant about it are gonna be fucking, and history will probably tell their story just like it did the story of the states as opposed to the barbarians. So yeah. I don't know, whatever. We're getting out in the weeds again. I think it's a good spot to end. You got plugs you're going to drop? I already kind of gave you plugs earlier, but we'll do it again.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah. Follow me. Send Jose money first, but then send me money second. Blackbird.substack.com. Follow me on Twitter at JamesLJ, and I think that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get out of that time suck we were talking about earlier with podcasts, give us money, because I don't know about you, but I know I drop mine immediately to my Patreon as opposed to then dripping out later to like the YouTubes and the podcatchers and shit. So if you want to catch my shit immediately, like within the day of, or maybe the next day of when I record, go to my fucking Patreon and do that. If you don't care, then whatever. Follow me on YouTube. Follow me on all the podcatchers, all that shit. So you got something to add?
Oh no, I was just gonna say I was thinking about doing that. That's what Pete does too. With that, fucking also like go give me money, fucking follow me on YouTube, any audio podcasts. If you want to hit me up, best place to hit me up is probably on YouTube, or not on YouTube, but on Twitter. Galson Jose, that's where I'm most active. DM me, wherever the fuck. Like, subscribe, come on, all that good stuff. That dude, it's been awesome. I'm really glad to have you on again. I'm sure we'll do it again, because I always end up bringing you back. Like, no one can keep us down. You can't quit me.
Yeah, I can't quit you. All right, with that, we're done.
All right.
Deuces.